Hey guys, it's Tom Bucks. Welcome to MST.TV's News Monday, where we talk about the happenings of the past weekend. In the past weekend, I would say OCG Land received a ton of announcements and information. They have their new ban list for April 1st. They also have cards that received erratas, and we're going to talk about both of these briefly on the OCG list. And more importantly, the Master Rule 2020 update. There's even more information on that in terms of several ruling changes that are also occurring. And it seems like one of the more notorious ones would be the TCG and the ruling that was specifically about activation timing that seems like Europe did not follow, but North America did. That's seemingly going to move forward in OCG, so I feel like the rule sets between the two regions are kind of merging together. I wonder if the April 2020 master rule for, I guess, North America, is it going to have some sort of level of update in terms of trigger timing for, hidden triggers? I don't know, but maybe they're trying to unify the game a bit more so that you don't have to play two different rule sets in different regions. Anyways, we're going to get into this right now, so make sure you guys hit the thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell as we go through each of these and break down the new rulings as well for Master Rules. To quickly run through the ban list in OCG, this is at Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization, and dang, this is a huge list for them because, of course, the new Master Rule is also going to be applying. So starting off with Jin release of Ritual, that's getting banned. Guard Dragon LP is banned, so no more LP Guard Dragon loop combo, and in World Challenge Justice Star was just way too good. This is an instant needle fiber kind of combo. They're taking that out, and yeah, it's for good reason. And I guess the whole Guard Dragon combo has been ripped out. Is that precursor to whether or not TCG is going to lose their Guard Dragon LP? Sad to say, it does seem like it's possible unless they're going to leave TCG players a bit of a bone on their love for Guard Dragon LP. Okay, looking into the limited, what a fat list this is. ABC Dragon Buster, it seems like a lot of extra deck cards are being hit. And yeah, Dragon Buster is one of them, since it is very powerful once you don't have to maintain your zones and you can still play links and ABC stuff and your fusions and your XCs. Yeah, they put him at 1. It's a very powerful card, very powerful quick effect, and it does summon all 3 monsters back out. Galatea's at 1. Seems like they're finally hitting the Orcus stuff. I thought they already did hit the Orcus stuff previously. Junk Speeder because it spams Synchro like no tomorrow. Yeah, and Makura the Destructor is back, but it does have a condition. So note that there are 2 cards that are listed in blue. Those are the ones that have erratas. Spiral Quick Fix would be put to 1. Finally for them, because man, I would machine dupe this card out even if it wasn't at 1. And if I don't have to maintain Quick Fix, it makes Spiral's a lot more powerful. It seems like Spiral's probably going to take a hit on the TCG side because it lived a little too long, but that's just my anticipation. Zen Mighty Carry, I guess they're bringing back the Zen Mighty, and Wind Up Magician's been limited down to 1. I'm guessing it's because it's going to be a bit too powerful. Dragon of the Red Eyes, this is the card that we didn't get in our Dual Overload. But being able to summon that basically anywhere is pretty silly, very silly. And Hyper Librarian, because you can draw cards, you can summon multiple Hyper Librarians, start synchroing like crazy, and you can pretty much just draw out most of your deck. Cyberstein, super powerful, just summons out whatever you want out of your whatever fusion you want out of your extra deck. And that's pretty busted, especially if you don't have to maintain your zone anymore, so you can use it to spam out a utility card, probably going to some crazy links or whatever. That's possible. Trishula Loop is not allowed anymore. Freddy Anaconda or for Scorpio, well, okay, while they're taking away their plant combo, I'm guessing it got abused a lot. Totally awesome. You either get 1. Wow, that sucks for the Paleo players. Link Cross, I don't even know what that is. Red Eyes Darkness Metal, that got an errata. It's put to 1. I'm not sure. I believe OCG didn't even have this card. I believe it was not even available. Instant Fusion, put to 1. It's too good once you go into the Master Rule 2020 or Master Rule 5 setting. Yeah, 1000 Eyes Restrict or Millennium Eyes Restrict, and you can just hold on to the board by yourself. Trickstar Light Stage, Brilliant Fusion. Why don't we get a Brilliant Fusion? Union Hanger, I'm guessing they're really anticipating that ABC is going to be a top dog. Red Eyes Fusion and put away. Main, that doesn't really do anything. If you're going to be playing the Verde Anaconda, you're just going to still only play 1 copy of it anyway because it's still really powerful even with the 1 Red Eyes. I guess you can kind of brick with it if you draw into it, making it a bit more of a Garnet. Then there's also Gateway of the 6, where 6 Sams can spam Xian like forever. They can spam Xian forever. Semi-Limit, Malicious is gone, down to, well, back to its old state. It's always like 3 through 3-2. Draconet makes no sense because I don't know. I don't know how OCG plays their Draconet. Jackalope and Nessie. Well, we have Nessie at 1, we have Jackalope at 2, kind of similar situation. Maybe we'll get back an additional Nessie. We can pray. Symbol of Heritage, cool. And then Trickstar Candina to 3, Ash to 3. I think this one should have been a 3 anyway. Baby Ceratosaurus, maybe their dinos were a bit too outrageous. I believe their Oviraptor still at 1. Necroz of Unicorn, with all of the OCG, I guess with Master Rule rather, being completely unleashed for the extra deck, I can say that Unicorn is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Having a skill drain against someone's entire extra deck lineup is perhaps going to be a thing. That's why they took away the Jin stuff. And Lady Debug at 3. That's cool. Let's get into the 2 cards that got received erratas before we go into the Master Rule stuff. But yeah, this is kind of interesting because it seems like cards are getting the Brio treatment. Makura the Destructor, seems like they're putting a bit of a big change on this. You can't activate as many cards as you want, so Trap Card Exodia is no more. So you can only use this card's name effect once per turn. That's fair. It can only activate once per turn. If you fails to activate, then it's gone for good. Now, if this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, you can link it off if you want. You can activate this effect. Once during this turn, you can activate a trap card from your hand. Once during this turn, this is completely neutering this card, but can this card still be abused? Very likely. It is technically a warrior, if I remember. Yeah, it is a warrior. And you can summon this card with a soul if you have some level of trap that you want to activate right away from your hand. Can you imagine if your opponent activated a hand trap that negated the activation of one of your cards and you just go ahead and play Witch's Strike from your hand? This is enabling Witch's Strike from your hand. It makes you think twice whether or not you want to hit a warrior deck with something like that. I think this opens the opportunity for Witch's Strike to be decent. I'm sure there's a lot of other cards that this card can force an activation of. And since it's not limited to once per duel, if you revive this card, put it back in the graveyard on another turn, does that mean you can still activate another trap card? Because since trap cards are still considered as spell speed 2, would you consider the one in your hand as a spell speed 2 as well? There's a lot of things for me to kind of think about since you're active from your hand. I'm assuming you can just chain a bunch of traps if you really wanted to. That's just my assumption here. And then in terms of the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Erratum, okay, so this is of course using the OCG kind of formatting in terms of the card text. It states that it comes with an alternate art as well. Very beautiful artwork for a really stun down effect. Of course, we can no longer loop this card. This dragon gets de-looped, as it says already, as you can only special summon a card with this card's name once per turn using its own special summon effect. In other words, number 1 effect is you can special summon this card by banishing one face-up dragon you control. That was the original summoning condition of this card, and you can only do it once. At this point, why does it just give us 3 copies of this card? I don't even think it's going to do that much damage because you can only use the effect of this card's second effect once per turn, which is during your main phase, you can special summon 1 dragon monster from your hand or graveyard except for Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. In other words, even if... Okay, LP is already banned in OCG, but even if you go LP, special summon Red Eyes Darkness Metal, you can use Red Eyes Darkness Metal to revive another dragon, and if you link that off, and you go into Pisty cannot revive the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon anymore, limiting the amount of monsters you have, which severely impacts Crusadia Guard Dragon. Well, Crusadia Guard Dragon won't even be a thing anymore because without LP, you don't really have that kind of combo, but you completely took away the ability for the whole Dragon Loop because if you think about it, 1 Darkness Metal almost accounts for 4 monsters on its own. Summon out the Red Eyes Darkness Metal, the monster it summons out, you get rid of it, you go into Pisty, and Pisty revives Red Eyes Darkness Metal. I guess it counts for 5 monsters almost, so that's a lot of monsters coming from 1 Red Eyes Darkness Metal, and they decide to errata, give it the Brio treatment where you can only activate it once per turn. So yeah, that's the big limitation, and I'm guessing that's eventually gonna apply to TCG as well, as most errata cards do eventually get shipped over back to TCG as well. Now let's look into the big changes. Master Rule 2020, more information on that for the OCG side. I'm not sure if TCG is going to get some sort of merging with OCG stuff either, but we can think about it. Let's go into that right now. Well, this whole article kind of broke everything down with the old way versus the new way. I'll read it, but I'll also see if I can give you guys additional context to why it is so. So, first of all, activation of monster effects are returned to the deck or extra deck face down. Those card effects will no longer activate. Now, this isn't completely new. If you kind of bring it back to Reborn Tengu, if Reborn Tengu is spun back into the deck, say with a Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, the Reborn Tengu, even though it has a mandatory effect which states that if this card is removed from the field, it has to summon another copy of another Reborn Tengu out of the deck. But the only time it does not activate is that if it gets returned into the deck. So when it gets returned to the deck face down, it doesn't activate. Now, extra deck monster did not behave like that before, and in this example, they're using Absolute Zero. So the old way of resolving Absolute Zero is that if you compulse it back into the extra deck, well, the Absolute Zero will continue to activate and destroy all cards, or all of your opponent's monsters. And the new way is that if it's returned from the field to the extra deck with a compulse, it will not activate the effect to Raigeki your opponent. So that part, it makes a lot of sense to me. Sure, why not? Now, this does not apply to stuff like Sky Striker. You think, I know some of you guys are just straight up jumping into Sky Striker. Oh, does that mean if I remove, say, the Shizuku by compulsing it back into the extra deck, does that mean that my Ray won't activate? No, that's not the case. It's not even the same monster. It still literally got removed from the field, and it's not like Shizuku's the one activating. You're still activating Ray from your graveyard. So in that case, Ray will still summon out, okay? So yeah, it seems like the trigger is on a different monster, and it's fine. It's just only specifically talking about the monster itself that got removed from the field back into the deck. Those won't activate, but everything else still will. So don't worry about that for people that are still playing Sky Striker. Next, we have, regarding the card activation, for card effects that move away from the activation location before their effects activate. Okay, so this is the notorious TCG that's the jargon term that people use, timing ruling. The second master rule change basically saying monsters, card effects, all cards, remember where they're supposed to activate. If it is a trigger that activates by summoning, it needs to activate on the field. The card needs to be present on the field when it activates. And then if there's a card that's sent to the graveyard to activate, then it needs to be present in the graveyard when it activates. So if you move the card from its activation location to a different location before the effect is activated, this is typical of cost. And whenever you pay cost for something, the card that you sent to the graveyard that met its trigger condition hasn't activated yet. They activate in a new chain. But if you remove it before the chain even occurs, well, then its effects cannot be activated, including mandatory effects. So to break it down, let me give you guys a more recent example. Say you have DD Crow versus Cherubini. Cherubini activates its effect, pays the cost to send a Graph into the graveyard, alright? And your opponent chains DD Crow. Because Graph does not activate in this chain, Graph activates in the next chain because it has a trigger-based effect. Remember, trigger effects, they are spell speed 1, so they need to start a new chain to do so. Since Graph got sent to the graveyard, but it got crowed before the resolution of this current chain, well, the Cherubini will try to resolve its effect, and of course, Crow already removed the Graph. Graph is not in the graveyard for the chain to start, so Graph will not activate. And that's the more recent example for, say, 3-Axis Dragon Links. But in terms of the origin of this, at least to the earliest time which I remember, it was related to a Mystical Space Typhoon on a Call of the Haunted. Mystical Space Typhoon was Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Call of the Haunted, tried to revive a Satellar Knight Deneb. The Neb gets special summoned out onto the field, and it has an if-based trigger, so it won't really miss timing. And the Call the Haunted gets destroyed, Deneb gets destroyed, but Deneb is no longer on the field to activate. Therefore, it doesn't get to search a card. Yeah, the card got summoned, but it's no longer on the field because it happened mid-chain, and got removed off of the field because of Call the Haunted's destruction effect. So there is no new chain for Deneb to activate anymore. I guess a lot of those online simulators will have to update their ruling as such. So even in their example, they're talking about Sangan, which has a mandatory effect to search a monster with 1500 attack or less, getting attributed by a Crush Card virus for cost, and then gets DD Crowed during the same chain of Crush Card. Since Sangan's no longer in the graveyard, even though it has a mandatory effect, it doesn't get summoned. And for a more recent example of something that's summon based, I would say Chaos Dragon Levianeer versus Rusty Bardiche, and the Orcus Symbol Skeleton and Orcus Dingirzu. So you summon out the Chaos Dragon Levianeer using Lights and Darks, attempting to pop cards in the field. It doesn't target on the pop, but then your opponent chains their Symbol Skeleton to summon out Dingirzu. So in resolving the chain, Dingirzu summons out into the Rusty Arrow, and then we resolve Levianeer. Levianeer chooses to pop off the Orcus Dingirzu and pop the Rusty Bardiche. So then what happens to the Rusty chain? What happened in North America is your opponent that had the Rusty and the Dingirzu, neither of them activate because they need to be face up on the field for it to even occur. So that's why the Dingirzu doesn't even send the Levianeer to the graveyard, which opens the field, which is why the Orcus deck during that format wasn't as potent as, say, in a different region. Okay, the next two Master updates are related to summon-based restrictions and checking whether or not they are successful. So previously, if you use Rage of Eyes of Blue, the Rage of Eyes of Blue has a condition where it states that you cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you use this card, except for Blue Eyes White Dragons. Okay, so it does lock you out of summoning anything. You can't normal or special, and if you attempted to use the normal or attempt to do a special summon that is not a Blue Eyes White Dragon, then you will not be allowed to activate Rage with Eyes of Blue. That was how it was before. So even if it does get negated, even if your summon gets Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, it still counts your attempt to do so. So if you try to summon out a special summon a Cyber Dragon onto the field and it gets negated by Solemn Judgment, you will not be able to activate Rage of Eyes of Blue, for instance. Okay, but the new way, it states that if your monster gets negated, the summon gets negated, then it doesn't count towards that anymore. So even for those attempts for a normal or a special summon, it doesn't count towards it, so you can still activate Rage of Eyes of Blue even after you get your monster Solemn Judgmented. And that kind of simplifies it for the understanding, well, my summon got negated, it didn't hit the field, it never really happened, and that's making it a bit more consistent rather than relying, oh, you attempted to do something. So it's making the game a little bit less complicated, if you ask me. And how does this apply to other cards? Pot of Duality is one of the cards that have a restriction very similar to Rage of Eyes Blue in terms of its wording at the very least, and I'm assuming it also applies. So if you attempted to special summon a Cyber Dragon and that Cyber Dragon gets negated by a Solemn Judgment, Royal Oppression, Solemn Warning, something along those lines, you can still activate Pot of Duality based off of this new ruling change. That's just my interpretation of it. I would say confirm with a judge in the future, but it does sound like that because even the wording between the two cards, Rage of Eyes Blue and Pot of Duality, they seem to share a lot of similarities based off of that. So I'm assuming even the attempt will now check whether or not it is successful or not. And then the next one here is regarding this monster can only be special summoned out once per turn. And in the previous one, if you attempted to do a summon, say a Dingirzu got negated by a Solemn Judgment. Yeah, it's gone for good, as it's gone for this turn because you've already tried to summon out the card. Yeah, well, now it's a little different because the attempts don't count anymore. Only successes count. So your opponent, if they have the ability to summon out another Dingirzu, they can do so and just slap it on top, attempt to Xyz summon again. Of course, the one that went to the graveyard was still negated, so it's still a semi-Nomi monster, and it didn't get summoned successful. You can't really revive that one. Still, it's still a pretty big deal since you can summon monsters that you couldn't summon before. And that, in their example, they're using High Speed Roar Chimbara. This card can only be special summoned once per turn, but if it gets negated by Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, Horn of the Heaven, and Grand Horn of the Heaven, well, you get to special summon another copy of it as long as you can make it properly. So yeah, that one pretty simple to understand, less complicated than the previous one. This last one here is regarded to continuous traps that special summon themselves as monsters into the monster zone by their own effect, and they still count as a trap card on the field. So what happens when something like that occurs? Well, previously, or rather currently, if you have say a Shaddoll Core and you activate its effect, summon itself out onto the field, that zone is in deadlock. It cannot be used because it counts as one of the cards in your spell and trap zone. It's still a continuous trap that is in that zone, technically. Well, it's not really in that zone, just that that zone represents where that trap was supposed to be. But in this new ruling, it basically, once it summons out, it's no longer considered as part of that area, and you can play 5 additional spells and traps into those zones with that continuous trap summoned out monster on the field. So that's really the main difference here. But one of my biggest concerns is, what if you book that trap monster? What if you activate Book of Moon and flip it face down? Previously, according to what we know so far, is that if you flip a continuous trap face down back onto the field, it would go back into the spell and trap zone, if I remember that correctly. How is that supposed to work now if you flip all 5 zones? Does it actually flip face down, or does it get sent to the graveyard, or does it just go somewhere else? I kind of want a confirmation on this particular part of the ruling, just so that there is a little bit of a fallback for some of the stuff that has been applied previously. So that's just my take on it. That's just my question there. But yeah, overall, pretty interesting stuff, making the game a little bit easier to understand for everyone, because it is pretty hard to actually maintain something that's invisible. And for maintaining game state wise, I'll say this is a pretty smart move. I'd rather deal with what would happen if it gets booked, if there's a full back row, rather than trying to remember that I can't set into that zone. So yeah, there's a pretty big deal. And I think it relates to like impermanence. What if imperm gets activated? A lot of that other junk. And yeah, that's all I got for this video, guys. Hopefully it made a lot of sense. I don't know which ones are going to be applied to TCG. I think unifying the rulings overall is a really good step for the game. And yeah, so that's all I really got for this, for my particular opinion. Anyways, what are your thoughts about the new master rule update for OCG? What do you think should apply to TCG? Should we actually apply some of the stuff that's in OCG that we don't have, which is like triggers in your hand that aren't public? They act like quick effects. I don't know if we should apply that to TCG. It seems like it's going to confuse a lot of people. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, maybe the game would actually be completely one whole family rather than segregated depending on region. Anyways, that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, hit subscribe, ding notification bell. Got some pretty interesting videos coming up, stuff that I don't usually do. And I guess let me show you guys one quick little thing, all right? I made this crazy little widget here. This widget is actually my little baby for now. So if I wanted to give blue player a bit of damage, hey, you just took 2,000 to the face, or maybe you just burned 1,000 from lava golem. Here's your burn as well. Oh, how about feel friendly? Here's all your life points back and then some. Here's 20,000 life points and it boosts you back up. What happens if you take damage while you're still above the 8k range? Well, here's what it would happen if you take 5k. Can I apply it to the other guy as well? The other guy, of course, can also take some damage. Here's 2,000 damage. Can I take any kind of damage? Here's 1,900 for that guy as well. Oh, actually, I just completely killed him at 19,000. But you guys kind of get the idea. I can also reset it at a touch of a button. And that's kind of the gist of this. And if you heal, of course, life points is green and your high health is green, but if you take damage, it's red and you fly all the way down to 0. And let's go back to normal. What about P1, P2? Can you update that on the fly? This tool is meant for live streaming, so Tom Box is on the left, Dr. Phil is on the right, and boom, done. Wow, what are the controls? I can't really show you guys. It's a secret stuff. I don't know. I'm really working on this. I'm trying to make live duels a bit more entertaining, and I'm also trying to give a live stream tool for maybe individuals that would require a live stream tool with a live update with maybe ease and precision that you can do with one hand. That's what I am offering. Well, this is what this thing is offering. Anyways, that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.